right, joining us now in studio is Toronto Sun columnist Lorrie Goldstein, and I really appreciate you being here with us,
Happy
Lorrie.
to be here. Talk about Peter anytime.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start with some of your fondest memories.
When I first got there, I was a young reporter, and he was already by then. This is 1971. He's already. Well, I got there in '78. He's already an icon. He's already been the first correspondent to open up a Canadian bureau in Moscow. He's already been through the Jack Ruby thing. He's already covered wars all over the place. And then when his paper got shot out from under him, the Toronto Telegram, he and Doug Creighton and Jim Hunt and 60 other day oneers form a new newspaper. And I come in at the height of that growth period. So I'm in there just like you're just like starry-eyed.
I was just going to say, you're probably starstruck.
Yeah, but then, one of his campaigns he did was the Sun did a whole campaign to help the Vietnamese boat people after the war. And the way he wrote about it day after day, I went to my wife and we were starting out, and I said, you know what, I want to give a week's pay to this because I think it's important that we try and help these people. And I went in there and I just said, could I just talk to you? And I gave him the check. And we just talked about it, and he because he knew so much about the everything that had happened in Vietnam. I knew some, but I didn't know everything, and so it was just wow, he's talking to me, And then another very memorable one was when we talked about, because during the Seoul Olympics in 1998, I'd gone to cover the political situation because it was very tense. There was concern about an attack from North Korea. There was concern about terrorism. That was also the Ben Johnson Olympics, and everything turned on its head. But after I come back, I said, I was up to the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between North and South. And that's where he was. He commanded men on what they call it, the sharp end of the bayonet. And I said, were you scared like that? And he said, no. He says, Lorrie, he says, funny. He said, both in the Second World War, he said, we considered it an adventure, right? So you were nervous, but you weren't terrified. And then he would just talk very quietly about what it was like to know that you were sending your men into combat, that you might die, that they might die. And that's why I think he was, I know Ray Hurd said it earlier, but he was part of the greatest generation. Yeah. They fought down tyranny. They fought down fascism. Then he went in the Second World War. Then he went and fought communism, North Korea. And then all those people came back to Canada and they built up the country. Peter and Doug and Don and those day oneers, look what they created. I mean, part of their legacy is right here.
Absolutely.
It's Sun News. I mean, sure. Like Quebecer has put in the capital and the vision. But they created like a newspaper that made money from the first day, that became the most successful startup. We used to have, I remember when I was young, we would have like successful American tabloids come to see the Sun. How did you guys do this? How have you been able to grow your paper so quickly? And the only other thing about him was that he was a no BS guy. He wouldn't want us to sit around. Like when I heard, the music was beautiful. Yeah. But I'm going,
a little too sad.
Oh, like he's like oh god. He's sitting there like, oh, you guys, come on.
Silly.
In other words,
exactly.
He'd want us to tell stories about him. Right. He'd want us to talk about.
And there are so many.
There's so many. But he'd also wanted. I mean, he was a funny guy, and he had a great sense of humor, and he was a mischief maker. And I mean, when I was an editor, God, he could be a pain in the butt. But all the great columnists are, Yeah. And it was hard for me because I'm the editor now to the founding editor of the Sun. What I'd say about him is that he always was, up until the day he died, he was the true voice of the Sun.
And so many news people become glazed. They become, skeptical. Yeah. Not him.
No, he was. It was funny. I was talking with one of the other panelists, Ray Hurd, and I remember once Peter. He didn't like the term journalist. He liked newsman, and Ray reminded me that what he liked most of all was reporter. That's what he was. He wasn't into writing about, he wrote about everything. Right. He climbed mountains. He had a triple bypass. He wrote about that and won a National Newspaper Award. Then he went and climbed a mountain. But when you read his stuff, it wasn't about him. It wasn't like, oh, this happened to me. It was, this is what it was like to be there. And it's what I always tried to teach young journalists when they were going on assignment, wherever they were going. I said, most of your readers will never have been there. They'll never have been to the red carpet on Hollywood. Right. So tell them whether you're on a mountain or in a war zone, what's it like? What's it feel like? What's it smell like? What's the sound like? What's it like when dawn breaks? And he always knew that his job was not to talk about Peter Worthington. His job was to use his skill set to tell us about what he was experiencing. And that's what made him a great journalist.
You speak so eloquently. I'm so happy you can come in. Thank you so much.
I'd do it any time for Peter.
All right. Toronto Sun columnist Lorrie Goldstein joining us in studio. A real treat.